Hi guys, and welcome to episode 8 of Data Leaders, the place you come to for updates on digital data and analytics in under 20 minutes. This week we have two kind of core topics. A lot of information and news has come out of Domo this week. Domo Palooza? Strange name, huh? But I'll talk about that a little bit after the intro. So let's get going. Welcome to episode 8. Hey, and in other news, by the way, we've decided to keep this on-air sign exactly the way it is because I noticed that it actually says on AI. How weird is that? On artificial intelligence, we're keeping it. We're leaving it like that, okay? It'll be a feature of the channel. That's what it is. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Data Leaders, your weekly update for all things digital, data and analytics. And it's been another busy week. There's lots of news this week to cover. We have, I think, 5 or 6 articles on a wide set of topics, but a lot of information and news has come out of Domo this week from their conference, Domo Palooza. Strange name, huh? But Domo Palooza? I don't like the fact it's got loser in the title. That's not a good thing. Huh? So anyway, we're going to be taking a look at some of the articles that came out of there. A lot of news coming through and some interesting things to see. The other news I'm covering is really about one of the hottest topics that we've seen recently in the data space, which is data literacy. A lot of stuff coming out on that. There's an interesting article from a vendor, Exasol, and then there's really what I would call a literature review, but it's definitely worth having a look at. Now, you might notice this week the sound is a little bit different, so we're still experimenting with setup. So bear with us while we get through that. But I hope it's okay. Usually I can see a lot more of what's going on in these recordings, but this week it's a little bit different. Okay, so we're gonna stick with it. Also, this week I'm not going to do any green screen stuff on the display of the individual items. I'm just going to talk through it so as you can see me in this space, but it's going to be a little bit smaller so you can also see the articles. But give us some feedback, leave us a comment down below. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. So like this individual video if you're getting value from it, and also subscribe because that's also important to us that you subscribe and tick the little bell so as you get notified when we do new videos. Okay, so let's just get into the content. And this first article is from Domo. In fact, the first 3 articles are from Domo, and they introduced the first multi-cloud data offering for modern BI. So this is an interesting article, as the release starts by lauding the benefits of leaving data where it is, something we talked quite a bit about when we talked about data mesh to John this last week. And if you want to check that video out, I highly recommend that interview, and there'll be a link on the screen right now. So check that out, because I think this whole trend, whether it's a trend or not, but ultimately people are realizing, and have been realizing realistically over the last 4 or 5 years, quite honestly, it's not new. It's just really coming to that sort of point in the hyper cycle where people are starting to really think about adopting it. And in addition to that, realistically, the technology is maturing to a point where it's usable in the enterprise. They liken this platform to the kind of Amazon play, where it's a single enterprise tool for your one-stop shop for data almost. And it sounds a lot like the capabilities you create when you create a data marketplace, but with Domo BI sitting on top. It also talks about native integrations to Snowflake and Redshift, which are important and key to freeing the data within the enterprise. And certainly Snowflake has a lot of sort of data access capabilities that would be really important not to lose as part of that integration. And even as a standalone platform, it's highly useful. So let's take a look at some additional releases from Domo this week. This was all part of this Domo Palooza. I'm still having a problem with that thing. The Domo Palooza conference. Jesus, man. Domo also announced it had expanded its relationship with AWS, deepening their support for AWS by leveraging Redshift and AWS Data Exchange. Additionally, Domo and AWS are making SageMaker available across the enterprise. This is delivered as Domo ML, which is powered by Amazon SageMaker under the hood. So really lowering the barrier to entry for machine learning and hopefully, really enhancing the ability to federate that across the organization. And the third article from Domo talks about the launch of something they call embedded analytics in Domo. So whilst on the surface it might seem like no real big news, actually, it's quite something in terms of the way it is deployed within the platform. I think we've already seen BI capabilities with embedded analytics, right? I mean, that's nothing really significantly new. But the interesting, I guess, potentially differentiating factor is that it's able to share analytics with customers who can set alerts, some of which could be reshaping industries. And the example that they give is where retailers could make in-store analytics available to manufacturers to allow them to understand their share of market and set alerts when these dynamics change. And that sort of data sharing can really transform the speed of change within FMCG businesses. And if you can imagine having that data in real time to be able to adjust supply chain logistics, to be able to adjust demand planning, and to be able to adjust the way you position your product or where the product is positioned in store. If you're getting that sort of analytics on a regular basis directly from store, and this application can help accelerate that process, then I think it has a valuable place in the marketplace. Now, the third item that I was going to talk about was all about the potential of IBM selling IBM Watson's Healthcare subsidiary. And there's a lot of stuff. I'm going to put the link in the description because I think it's worth you having a look at. I'm not going to spend too much time on it here because as I read through it, I was trying to figure out how much of it was fact versus fiction. And a lot of it seemed to me to be, guessing, quite honestly. I can't put it any way like that, any other way than that. I thought conjecture. It was an opinion rather than necessarily fact. So I didn't really want to bring it here and spend time on it. There's a lot of detail in the article. I'm just looking through it here. I'm not sure it's really valuable for us to talk about it at length, but I'm going to create a link. It might be interesting to you to see what's going on with IBM Healthcare, or at least alleged to be going on with IBM Healthcare. There are some facts in the article, but I'll leave you to determine which bits are fact and which bits aren't. The next article is from Computer Weekly, but it's actually based on research reports from Exasol. And a company name, the Exasol company name, as Computer Weekly points out, reminds most of us of something we would squeeze onto a cut or bump or graze or to soothe a bad back. Exasol sounds like something you get in the chemist, not something you buy as software. So sorry, I had to mention that, as I did personally get a little bit of a laugh out of it, but Computer Weekly at least points that out. The report looks at data literacy and discovers that there's little recognition of data literacy in 16 to 21-year-olds, or more specifically, I think what they call D-Nation or D-Native. That's right, D-Native. So this D-Native coin of phrase is really about these 16 to 21-year-olds. And the research looks at around 3,000 participants in the UK, US, and Germany. So naturally, I'd like to see a study with a much larger sample size, but I think it gives us a good indication and certainly gives us cause for thought and to look a little bit more deeply into this. The conclusions that are drawn are that there's not enough education to ensure that people are leaving school with the right level of data education. And this isn't just for those people who might want to pursue an avenue of study into data, but actually data literacy is more important across all capabilities as we rapidly come to realize that the change we impact through data transformation touches everyone in the organization. So some level of data literacy across the organization is going to be important. When you think about 16 to 21-year-olds as the next set of leaders, having poor data literacy or not enough education around data literacy in that population is probably somewhat of an issue, or it will become an issue, or at least we won't make the right sort of progress that we were expecting to make. And personally, I think for those who follow that path towards a technical or specific analytical type domain within their education, then those skills will be developed. But we know that data literacy goes well beyond that, and it is and should be for everyone in all of their roles, not just for data scientists and those of us who work in the domain. There also seems to be a desire in the D-natives to learn more, and the survey also shows that D-natives are more attached to purpose and impact to the wider society. And of course we know it's not just D-natives either, it's actually groups that came before them and are already in the workplace. There's much more focus on when people make their choices in terms of who to go and work for, that social impact is much more important for them than it perhaps was for previous generations. And that continues to be the case for D-natives as well, of course, and that's not at all surprising to find that. What is interesting though is these D-natives do seem to be being failed by the education system because there isn't this type of education in their curriculum today, and even if they're not going to go into data science, they do need these skills. So key that this sort of thing changes, and I think we'll look at the societal changes that might be coming in this next report. So the final report or article that we want to look at this week is quite a deep article actually. It's also on data literacy, and it's from Paris 21 research report on, I'm going to get this right, advancing data literacy in the post-pandemic world. The report focuses on policy dialogue, which suggests that governments might now be really considering taking data literacy as a key driver in the economy. And that combined with the previous piece, which talks about the education element in younger adults, and those people who are going to be coming into the work environment over the next few years, really shows that there could be a shift starting to take place here. Of course, it will take time, but it's a really positive move. And particularly when you look at the amount of research that's taken place on data literacy. This report really is what I would describe as a literary review or a literature review. It pulls together many academic papers in the data literacy domain, and it determines some quantitative insights and some actions, which I'm going to review here. I'm going to focus on the qualitative insights predominantly here. I'm going to let you look at the research report itself to look at the real actions that you can take on the back of that. So the report uses the pandemic really as a magnifier of the rise of data in society more generally. When you think about the fact that COVID appears on the news every evening pretty much now, we're completely inundated with data and knowledge around COVID. And things like the R number, the flattening of the curve, the exponential rise, these are all terms that might be normal to us within our industry, but are absolutely not normal to the general public. And the general public are now being exposed to these concepts. Of course, they don't necessarily always understand them. And honestly, the way I've seen it is the way these are delivered and the story that's told isn't always necessarily the best, although it has improved over time in terms of the way it's reported and delivered by governments. But then you mix that with what's also been going on in social spaces over the last 5 to 10 years, and the rise of sort of tribes of people with common opinions and how people attach to that. You've got data on the one side and you've got spurious misinformation on the other, and the public, the general public, are really having challenges with being able to differentiate between those two, which is really why data literacy is important, and giving people the skills, and of course having more open data available it is critically important, so as people can make their own minds up about what's going on, but with facts rather than opinion without facts behind it. Now, moreover, the report shows that interest in data literacy is rising, and that's in line with the previous report we showed from Exasol. That's a good thing, of course, but it's rising when you look at where it's rising in low and middle income countries. And actually more developed countries, the interest in data literacy is lower. And that's quite an interesting differentiation to see. And I think we should all be aware in the more developed countries that actually there's a possibility of us being left behind here as more emerging countries, lower middle income countries become much more data literate, and the skills in industry and across the board and outside of the data domain become much more data literate. And that will give those emerging economies much more of a competitive advantage overall. So consider that as a key factor in terms of how you might want to accelerate the data literacy within your organization. Now, it states something quite bold and quite honestly quite reassuring, and this is really the first of the insights that I'm going to go through. So insight one is there is an urgent need to develop data literacy at the level of citizens, organizations and society, and it profiles it as urgent. We need to move now. We really need to accelerate with data literacy. The report nuances the audience to ensure everyone is listening. So it isn't about someone else. Even if you're watching this now, tuned into a YouTube channel about data, as a member of data leaders and a member of the data community, you might be a data producer, an analyst, or a data consumer. But remember, this report is talking to you, and of course to me, to all of us in the data community, because how good is your data literacy? And have you even thought about how data literate you may or may not be? I know from experience that the more you get into management, you get into leadership, the further really away from actually interacting with data you become. And of course, we spend a lot of time talking about the cultural and the leadership type transformation that you have to preside over. But also remember, you should continue to manage and sharpen your data literacy skills. It talks about developing a common language and driving a global dialogue around data literacy. The report makes an important point that is obviously close to my heart and many of the people that I've worked with over the past years, and that is data literacy goes beyond technical skills. Now, it doesn't say that data literacy isn't about technical skills. It says it goes beyond, and that means technical skills are part of data literacy and they should not be ignored at all. But I would also like to make the point that, and this is an issue that I've reconnected with recently, that we have to ask, how are our technical skills? Again, I personally spend a lot of time talking about cultural transformation, development of data literacy within the broader organization. But ultimately, we also have to look at ourselves and figure out, technical skills are 1/3 of the space of data literacy. So I've recently been diving back into projects around data quality, around analytics, looking at statistical significance and resharpening my mathematical skills around that, and refreshing skills like reconnecting with SQL, XML, things that you may not have touched for a long time. And we should also have an interest in staying current in those domains, or if you don't have those skills, to start develop at least a basic understanding of how you might interact with an API in a simple way. And these are going to be skills for the future, particularly with the rise of open data standards. You're going to need to be able to grab this data and make your own mind up rather than listening to traditional or social media. So let's pause and ask ourselves, what is data literacy anyway? The report describes it well, I think, referencing literature dating as far back as 2015. The definition is the ability to read, work with, analyze, and argue with data. So the report refers to data literacy being a combination of information literacy, statistical literacy, and technical skills. So, as I mentioned a second ago, brushing up on those technical skills is important, but also, no matter what part of the data lifecycle you're sitting in, understanding some element of statistical components is also important. If you don't have those, or you don't have technical skills, brushing up on those is going to be important in the future. So statistical literacy, even just a basic understanding of what we really mean by min, max, median, mean, standard deviation, variance, statistical significance. Those basic statistical concepts would be valuable for you to certainly understand as a baseline, and equally the technical skills in terms of how to interact with APIs and other things are going to be important. So if you don't have those skills today and you're sitting watching this, I would seriously recommend you spend some of your spare time coming up to speed, just maybe 4 or 5 hours a week, an hour a day, really focusing on brushing up those skills or learning those skills to make sure that you raise up your data literacy. And of course, if you're not in the data domain, it equally applies to you. There follows a really great review of the literature and research in this domain. And what they provide, I think, is really powerful. It's a really simple grid looking at each element of the data lifecycle and referencing the specific academic papers and papers that have been written that are relevant to those particular areas. So it's a pretty good literature review of the data literacy domain. Literacy features way too often here. Anyway, insight 2. Data literacy is applicable at individual, organizational, and system levels. And this insight looks at the fact that data literacy is delivered at that individual level. However, it's also measured at the corporate or company level and measured at more aggregated levels in terms of societal level, where it starts to talk about data literacy as culture. Now, of course, culture exists also within organization constructs, small and large. So there's always that cultural element, but the report really specifically talks about societal data literacy being important to economic development. And, in that context, when you think about COVID and you think about what that's done to bring data to the forefront, then more and more understanding and education around that is going to be necessary. Of course, organizations can measure data literacy across the whole organization or in parts of it. And this relates more towards how data is used as a part of the business, as well as the skills and understanding exists in individuals within that. The two things are really, really closely linked. There are a number of maturity models out there, and this article references as many as they know about, at least. I wouldn't say all of them. There are probably some that they haven't mentioned, including those developed by organizations that are emerging and we know and are part of our community, and also organizations like the ODI who have this data skills framework, which again, I encourage you to take a look at, get your membership, and take a look at the tools and capabilities that exist within the Open Data Institute. Insight 3 I've made a point about previously, that data literacy isn't just for data experts and enthusiasts, it really is for everyone. And the report points out that foundational data literacy skills can serve as a tool to accelerate societal and informed participation in the information ecosystem and economy. And I think those are important components, making sure that the broader society can interact with the information economy and also have a keen sense of awareness of their own data and how that's used in the information economy, I think is critically important. The report then provides examples of data literacy initiatives, which I would encourage you to review as part of the report itself. The link will be in the description below. We don't have enough time to provide insight into each of those. However, let me say that there's a lot of them. And as always, I recommend a simple membership of the ODI. You'll get great insight through that channel. So the others outside of the ODI range from the 100-hour Nepal Data Literacy Program, the Data Playbook Toolkit for Data Literacy Consortium, where are we? Click, have a data literacy program, Data Basic and Data Culture Project, School of Data Fellowship, and much, much more. So I really encourage you to check out the article for that full list. After that, there are some really key takeaways, which I would encourage you again to take a look at. The link will be in the description below. If you have an interest in data literacy, then you really should be reading this list and this report in full. I think it's probably one of the best ones I've seen so far. So that concludes the content for this week, and thank you very much for being tuned in. A couple of things. First of all, something free for you to do is to hit the subscribe button and the like button and leave us a comment. And the reason we ask you to do that is it really helps bring other people to the channel, and it helps us engage with you directly, and it improves the quality and the breadth of the community that we're within. The other thing to mention this week, on the 30th of March, I am doing an AMA with the revive.tech platform. So take a look. I'll include links in the description below again. What is an AMA? An AMA is an Ask Me Anything. It's a 45-minute live session, I think on video or on audio. I don't know which, actually. I think it's on video, and there's already a number of questions in the forum on Revive. So take a look there. Once again, I will create a link in the description below for you to go directly there. So you need to go there, ask your question, and also tune in on, I think it's Tuesday night, 30th of March. I think it's 7 p.m. No, 6 or 7 p.m. CET, 5 or 6 p.m. UK time. So have a look at that, and I think it'll be a great deal of fun for me to be able to take your questions and answer. And I think I'll be doing a lot more of those kind of live sessions as well. If those things are things that interest you, please leave a comment in the description below. I'd be really interested in hearing from you, and it'd be great to interact with you live and answer as many questions as I can. Of course, keep them clean. I won't be answering any that aren't, and I don't also purport to have the answers to everything either. So some of them I may well not know the answers to, so don't be disappointed if I don't have all the answers either. A couple of other things. We do expect to expand to other social platforms in the coming months, so watch out for news of that. And of course, very, very shortly, I will be announcing the Data Leaders Advisory Board. So that's it for this week. Remember to subscribe, hit the little bell, like and follow, and we look forward to seeing you very soon in the interview series or in this weekly update. All right, have a fantastic week, everybody.